According to Statista, Gucci's brand value went up to $18.1 billion from $15.6 billion within a year, making it one of the most prestigious brands in the world. For more than a century, Gucci has been one of the hottest brands that royalty, celebrities, and influential people indulge in. Gucci is a top global brand, even for millennials and teens. But prestige often comes with a dark history that even Gucci couldn't avoid. But before we get to our video, click the subscribe button if you still haven't. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you're always notified whenever we have a new video. So, let's get right to it. How the iconic brand started. Gucci was born to modest business owners in Florence, Tuscany, Italy, on March 26, 1881. His parents produced straw hats and anticipated Guccio taking over. However, the teenage Guccio boarded a freighter for England. The Savoy, one of London's most opulent hotels, was where he found employment. He held jobs there as a dishwasher, waiter, bellhop, concierge, and later, elevator operator. The Savoy was among the first hotels in the world to have an electric elevator. Thus, the work was significant since it provided Guccio the unique chance to see its renowned and wealthy guests up close. He observed that they all had stylish luggage and handbags that went beyond necessity. They seemed to be status symbols for the rich. He also discovered that they had little regard for the price as long as the quality was unmatched. Guccio collected enough money, and after a few years, he traveled back to Italy to begin a new life. In Florence, he had a job at an antique shop, a wife named Ida Calvelli, and a family. Guccio was compelled to leave his home once more and join the army when World War I started. Fortunately, he lived through the war and returned to Florence. Though the war left the city and its economy wrecked, Guccio secured employment at a business specializing in high-quality leather goods. He learned the fundamentals of the profession from the proprietor, and since Guccio picked up new skills fast, he was selected to serve as the manager of a new branch in Rome. Guccio was forced to make many trips back and forth since Ida preferred to live in Florence. With each trip back home, he grew increasingly eager to start his own shop in Florence. And it seemed that Guccio could count his lucky stars because when he and his wife walked around Florence, they came across a modest shop for rent. Ida inspired Guccio to take charge and realize his ambition of starting a store in the city. He then pooled their funds on top of a loan from a friend without thinking twice. Initially, Guccio named his store Valigeria Guccio Gucci. Valigeria means leather goods shop. He then changed the name to Azienda Individual Guccio Gucci, meaning one-person business, sole trader, or sole proprietorship. But ultimately, he cut it down to Gucci. Guccio personally selected leather handbags and luggage suppliers in Tuscany, Germany, and England. But he frequently commissioned one-of-a-kind pieces. And the time he spent working at the Savoy allowed him to predict what affluent travelers would likely purchase, which his suppliers couldn't provide. After a while, he got sick of depending on his suppliers, so he started a workshop where he could create and fix his own products. Then again, he struggled to make a profit during the first few years and badly needed cash to pay his suppliers, workers, and other bills. But before we go further into the video, subscribe to the channel by clicking the red button. Click the notification bell so you'd be notified whenever we release a new video. Business problems. Going back to our story, Guccio's future son-in-law saved the day and loaned him the cash he needed to keep the business afloat. He could fully repay the loan and appoint a group of artisans over a few months. Each person was in charge of finishing a project entirely on their own. Occasionally, completing a product needed a lot of different pieces, and it generally took 10 hours. As Guccio's company and crew expanded, Italy's political structure changed. Guccio couldn't get enough leather due to the trade embargo at the time. So, He gambled on producing new goods to keep his store from closing for a second time. He combined canvas and leather to make purses and luggage. Only the product's corners, clasps, and straps were covered in leather, as they were the most used areas. Later, he added shoes, wallets, and belts to his product line as accessories. And in 1932, his loafers were the first to feature a gilded snaffle. Aldo, one of Guccio's sons, was inspired to do something more significant. He had been all around Europe and found that many were interested in the goods his family produced. He wanted to take Gucci to them, but Guccio rejected his proposal to open branches in other locations. The elder Gucci didn't think they could raise the money, but Aldo was confident and requested a loan from their bank. In the end, Guccio gave in and started a second store in Rome. This move proved worth it because Rome was declared an open city in 1943. Soldiers flocked to the store to buy anything they could for their mothers, wives, or significant others. Guccio rushed to secure loans from multiple banks after the war to keep both stores operational. Yet even though he was running out of materials, his crew kept coming up with inventive ways to use what they did have, like the iconic bamboo-handled pigskin bags. In Milan, Guccio opened a third store in 1951. Aldo, Rodolfo, and Vasco, his kids, were away from the house because they were choosing a location for their first American store. With a $6,000 bank loan, they decided to open a shop on East 58th Street, corner of 5th Avenue. Guccio was enraged when he learned about his son's adventure and wanted them home. But he gave in again, not realizing that it was one of the final things he could do for his sons. The first Gucci store in America debuted in New York a year later. Gucci already made a name as one of the most prestigious brands in Europe and became among the first Italian brands to open a store in the city. Queen Elizabeth II, Jackie Kennedy, Princess Grace of Monaco, and Elizabeth Taylor were among the famous people who were fans. New York was only the start of a global expansion, but just 15 days after the New York opening, Guccio passed away at age 72. Guccio wrote in his will that his sons Aldo, Rodolfo, and Vasco would act as devices of Gucci when he died. However, his only daughter, Grimalda, whose husband once prevented the closure of the business, received nothing. She tried to sue her brothers in court for a piece of the company, but she was unsuccessful. Still, life must go on. So Aldo concentrated on Gucci's international expansion, while Rodolfo oversaw its Milan store and Vasco led its Florence manufacturing. In the 60s, the elite wanted a piece of Gucci, and it's all because of loafers, the shoes that Aldo initially disdained and that many people thought were odd. When Gucci introduced them in America, stilettos were popular, but women realized how much more comfortable and stylish loafers were. The Gucci loafers soon gained popularity with both men and women, that Frank Sinatra was known to have a sizable collection. Gucci established its impact over the years by opening shops worldwide and diversifying into clothing, perfumes, and accessories. Vasco died of cancer 2 years after the introduction of Gucci perfumes and watches. Since Vasco had no children, his company share was left to his widow Maria. She was bought out by Aldo and Rodolfo, who equally divided the shares. Later, Aldo divided some of his shares among his sons Roberto, Giorgio, and Paolo. In the meantime, Rodolfo didn't give his only son Maurizio a share. Even if the boys' combined ownership of the business remained modest, it was inevitable that they would need to step up. Gucci's sales had multiplied 25 times in the previous years. Giorgio, Paolo, and Maurizio didn't fulfill their obligations to the company. Giorgio used the family name to launch his own store. On the other hand, Paolo launched his own company and exposed his father's tax fraud, possibly because of an arrangement with Maurizio's wife. Aldo was fired, and Maurizio received half of the business after Rodolfo died. Maurizio seemed to crave even more power after that. He was sure he could only accomplish it by holding all the shares. But he needed an investor because he lacked the necessary funds. Despite their interest in the concept, the bankers doubted that a deal could be made given all the conflicts in the family. InvestCorp, a private investment company, took the risk. Despite being relatively unknown in the financial world, they already have Tiffany & Co. in their portfolio. So, Maurizio was able to buy out his family through InvestCorp. However, under Maurizio's direction, Gucci began to lose millions annually. And before InvestCorp agreed to save the business, Maurizio had to step back. Of course, Maurizio resisted, but he eventually left. And in 1993, the entire Gucci family no longer had any shares in the company they started. 2 years later, Maurizio was killed by a hitman. His ex-wife Patrizia was sentenced to 18 years in prison for arranging the hit. As of the making of this video, there's no creative director for Gucci just yet. The most recent CD, Alessandro Michele, was known for his maximalist designs and has been with the brand since 2002. He significantly boosted Gucci's popularity with a geek chic aesthetic. From January 2015 until his resignation in November 2022, he was in charge of all Gucci's collections and overall brand image. Hate them or love them, Gucci has been a go-to brand for the rich and famous. We think Gucci will be a mainstay for many years to come. We hope you enjoyed the dark history of the fashion house of Gucci. See you in our next video, and always remember, Invictus Luxury, for people who want more.